For over 50 years, Burlington's legacy has been great deals on coats for all weather conditions. So before you're caught unprepared for the winter weather, head to Burlington for name brands, quality items, and surprising fits for every family member. Stock up on coats, sweaters, and accessories before the cold hits, so you can finally stop avoiding the elements and start living comfortably. Warm up at your nearest Burlington location less than 1 mile away. Burlington. Deals, brands, wow.
Money decisions don't have to be either or. With Bank of America, they can be yes and. Like yes to sunny vacations and rainy day funds. Can our digital tools and guidance help you create the future you want? Yes. And help you keep enjoying today too. Do more with a bank that asks, what would you like the power to do? Explore our tips and more at bankofamerica.com/yes and.
Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
Whole Foods Market has Thanksgiving gatherings covered. First things first, reserve your no antibiotics ever fresh whole turkey today, starting at $2.99 a pound. Or go with their organic spiral cut bone-in ham, full of seared-in flavor. For sides, choose Whole Foods Market grab-and-go platters. Go even further and get your whole meal catered. Just order online by November 26th. Get Thanksgiving ready at Whole Foods Market. Terms apply.
Duke fans, welcome to episode 664 of the DBR podcast, Duke Basketball Roundup. Jason Evans here for you, joined by my buddy Donald Wine. Donald, it is bright and early on a Saturday morning. I mean, 10 a.m. It's kind of early.
It's early for me. I think
Okay.
it should be early for anyone on the East Coast. This was a 2-day affair for us. Also, Jason, this is coffee that I'm drinking. You guys can't see this that are listening, but this is actually coffee because after the Duke game was over, which was over about 12:40 a.m. On the East Coast, I then watched F1 qualifying because it's in Vegas. And because it's in Vegas, they decided to make it at 1 a.m. On the East Coast, which the race is also tomorrow at 1 a.m. So, spoiler alert, for the next two podcasts, I'm going to be bleary-eyed. A lot of coffee in my future and in some of yours as well.
Yeah, it was a late night affair for those of us on the East Coast, but a fun evening of watching the Blue Devils take on the Arizona Wildcats, a game that Duke eventually ends up winning by the score of 69-55. Donald, if you had asked me if this was a game where first one to 60 wins, I would have been like, what are you talking about? Two teams that love to play fast, two teams very good on offense, really good on offense, and it turned into a just major defensive grind. Before we get into our thoughts, our comments in the game, because, I have pages and pages of notes, let's get to the headlines, as we always do. Oh, man. I'll tell you what, we can sort of ping-pong back and forth a little bit. Is that
because
cool?
we got a ton. The
DBR podcast at gmail.com inbox was flying all through the night with these headlines. I'll start with Joseph Kucha, who said, Duke dominates in down and dirty dogfight. Love the alliteration, and that is a really accurate down and dirty dogfight is a really accurate way to describe this game.
So I'll start with Corbin Vanderweg, and Corbin wrote a bunch of them, but one I liked was Duke skies for the boards to take the air out of Zona. I like that. Arizona. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Oh, that I just got that. That's very good. Duke Fox. By the way, I love the fact that we have a fan whose his real name is Duke.
That is an all-time, and there's no diss to any names on here, yours and mine included, Jason. That is an all-time listener name for this podcast. It applies so well.
I've met him in person. I think it was a Clemson game he came to that I met him at. So and he introduced himself.
Name your kids Duke, Cameron, Wallace Wade, Cameron Crazy, whatever you want to do. Duke names are always welcome here.
In any event, Duke Fox gave us this one. He goes, met with little love, Blue Devils plant a flag in Tucson and close with confidence. Con with a K-O-N, confidence. I like that one.
Yeah, I actually had that one as well. Let me go to one from our buddy John Grantland, who just recently celebrated a birthday. He always sends in a bunch of headlines. And I think Jason, there's probably a couple that we have. I'm going to pick one. And one he had was Duke and Coop turned Tucson into Flagstaff as Devils secure a big road win over Arizona. Flagstaff, a different city, but it is also conquered by the Blue Devils.
Um, William Kaberg, defense dazzles, freshman fabulous, transfers tough, rebounding resounding as Duke claws to big road win. Just little couplets of alliteration there. Nicely done, William.
Yeah, another one I had was from Jamie Keffer. Again, Jamie wrote in a bunch of them, but this one was very simple. Whoever says love conquers all never met Cooper Flag. I like that one.
Oh, that is really good. I had that on my list. That is really good. All right, so last two. I think you're all done, right? It's
I
just
got
me.
one more. I got one more. Yeah.
All right, well then, okay. So one more. Joseph Matherly. Little bit of rhyming here. I love this. Duke delivers. Caleb Love shivers as Cooper Flag makes Wildcats quiver.
Yeah, I like that one. That was on my what was that? I guess I have an auxiliary list, the honorable mentions
It's
list.
the extra
My
list, right?
final one that I have is from Anthony. I think his last name is Jax. He just signs his name Anthony. Jax is in his email somewhere, so I'm just going to call him Anthony Jackson. That is not your name. I apologize. dbrpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to learn your government name or even your pseudonym, whatever you want to use. But Anthony wrote in, Duke shows no love to AZ as love is now in V because he comes up MT. Now, he wrote AZ because of Arizona. NV is Nevada, where we will be going next to face Kansas, and MT is the mountain time that Arizona is on right now, which this makes this game so late. That is outstanding, Anthony. Outstanding.
All right, we will close with this. We mentioned John Grantland. We've wished him happy birthday. John is just, he works so hard on these headlines and he is worth every one of them. Get ready, people. We need a little music underneath this or something like that. The cats were cradled by the silver spoon. The little boys in blue put a flag on the moon and Tucson. When you coming home, Duke? I don't know when, but we'll hang a banner then. Yeah, we're going to hang a banner then. Oh, John. Oh, John. That is so well done.
I didn't know this was the karaoke hour on the Duke basketball roundup, but we both have it in us to say that song is great. It's not my song on karaoke, Jason. I don't know if it's yours, but you handled it brilliantly.
Yes, the little boys in blue put a flag on the moon. I was just like, oh my God, that's so good.
Yeah.
All right, enough of the headlines. Let's get to the game. We begin as we always do with the good, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it right off the top. Rebounding, 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 and rebounding. Duke wins the board battle 43-30 against the best rebounding team in the country. If you did not listen to our preview of this game, Donald and I spent, about 20 minutes or so talking about the fact that Arizona grabs every damn rebound that's available against Duke. Again, the Blue Devils won the rebounding battle by 13. It took hard work on every single possession. Total team effort. 6 different guys got 4+ rebounds. Everyone who played double-digit minutes got 4+ rebounds, except for Kaman Malawach. And I want to point out that oftentimes the rebounds were because Arizona was so busy worrying about Kaman, and Kaman was occupying so much of their attention that someone else was able to get the boards as a result. So even though Kaman only ends with 3 rebounds, he should be credited with like 5 or 6 rebound assists or something like that. Duke only allowed 6 offensive rebounds in this game, which is stunning against a team that, as we mentioned, usually grabs more than half of their missed shots. Against Duke, it was under 17%. And the defensive rebounds, which is what we're talking about here, if they aren't getting offensive, we're getting defensive rebounds. It was our guards. It was the guards who were like, everybody on Duke went back to get defensive rebounds. Sion James and Con Knipple each end with 6 defensive rebounds. A friend of mine wrote and said, hey, a shout out to Con, because he was an absolute demon going to the boards even when his offense wasn't working. I thought the fact that Duke was able to keep Arizona off the boards was a lot of the story of this game.
We said that rebounding had to be a team affair, and as you mentioned, it was. It wasn't just the bigs; it was the guards getting involved. It was guys off the bench getting involved. Mason Gillis, I'm sorry, not Mason Gillis. Malik Brown had 7 rebounds. Konfident, as you mentioned, had 7 total rebounds. Cooper Flagg had 6. Caleb Foster had 4. Sion James had 6. It Everyone felt like they were contributing on the rebounding on the glass. This is the stat to think about, Jason. We mentioned in the preview how good they were at offensive rebounding. They averaged 21 offensive rebounds a game. Some people don't get 21 total rebounds in a game. They averaged 21 on the offensive glass per game. Through the first 26 minutes of this game, they had 1. That is amazing. And they kept every single time they were missing shots. It kind of exposed the fact that Arizona is not a team we talk about as a team that doesn't make a lot of shots. They're not great from field goal, but it's because they have so many second chance and third chance and fourth chance and fifth chance points. They're able to take you out and average. And because of that, they've averaged 94 points a game to this point. Of course.
Yeah, wait, they haven't scored less than 88 points in the game. We held them to 55.
Right. And so 88 was the game they had against Wisconsin where they just lost, right? So they had been scoring above that. And this is the first time I believe that their coach Lloyd has lost 2 games in a row with Arizona. So
he's been the
there
coach
over
there
4 years.
He's been the coach there since 2021. First time he's lost 2 games in a row. Lowest scoring total of any game since he came over. 55 points is their low number under Tommy Lloyd. That shows you he's a really good offensive coach. That shows you the effort that Duke put in.
But the rebounding, again, 6 overall.
We transitioned to defense. Oops, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. We're going to get to defense too. We're going to talk about it in a second. But 6 offensive rebounds. That's a 16.7% advantage, success rate for Arizona. Meanwhile, Duke had 13 offensive rebounds. That's 35.1%. That's the ball game right there. Every single time it felt like, especially through the first, again, 2/3 of this game, we would come down on defense and force them to just 1 and out. If they made the basket, fine. If they missed the basket, we were going the other way. We'll talk about the other parts of the defense that I thought excelled, but the rebounding was the reason why we continued to stay in this game. And unlike Kentucky, something that they focused on, right? In Kentucky, we had a 9-point lead at the half, and we lost it because we weren't rebounding. We weren't doing the little things on defense. In the second half, they clamped down on their rebounding. And yeah, sure, they got a few more offensive rebounds, but it felt like the jar was closed for Arizona. And every single time the ball hit the rim and went in the air, Duke hands came down with it and went the other way.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's formally transition now to the defense. And by the way, how good does it feel as a fan to think that, your team won a big road game on rebounding and defense, 2 areas where this is a young Duke team. The reason that the experts, don't have Duke at, in the top 5 and stuff like that, obviously partially because we lost to Kentucky, but in general, it's because everyone's like, oh, they're relying on freshmen. The rest of college basketball is relying on, 4th and 5th year players. And you can't hope to compete with 17 and 18-year-olds against 22 and 23-year-olds. And for the most part, you'd be right. But this Duke team just showed that is not the case for them because they can put in this kind of effort. Right now, on defense, Ken Pomeroy says that Duke is the best defensive team in the country. Number 1 ranked defensive team in all of college basketball. We had an emailer, Ryan Fulton. He sent us a headline. We didn't use his headline, but I'm going to use this. Ryan said, I think we haven't paid enough significance and attention to what Jay Lucas has done to help John Shire establish Duke's defensive identity during Shire's young tenure as head coach. If you average our Ken Pom defensive efficiency during the last 10 years of the Coach K era, it was around 40. In John Shire's first 2 years, it was 16 both times. And now, for the moment, we are number 1. And Ryan Fulton went on to say, at 87.3, which is what our current Ken Pom defensive ranking is, this would be the most efficient Duke defense since our 2002 team. And having the tallest team in D1 and having Cooper Flagg does make Jay Lucas's defensive job a little bit easier, but we shouldn't overlook what our defensive coordinator, which is what Jay Lucas is, has done to establish the tone for the Shire era. I thought that Duke played incredibly hard and incredibly smart on defense in this game, pretty much the entire game. They were a little loose early on. Tyrese Proctor lost his man completely for a layup like in the first couple minutes, and we gave up some really wide open shots, but that was quickly fixed. I think there may have been some early nerves in this game for Duke, but as we mentioned, an Arizona team that hadn't scored less than 88 points all year only gets 55, and they were playing at home. I mean, that's one of the most impressive things about it. They're playing at home, and it felt like Arizona could never get anything easy. Even when they would get a turnover and they'd rush the other direction, which happened a little bit too often, and Duke would only have one or two guys back on defense. We did an outstanding job of not giving up anything easy. We made their offensive work and work and work. And the shots didn't fall because when you work really hard just to even get open for a shot, it's hard to have the legs and the strength to make that shot. And we did not give them anything from three. One of the hallmarks of this Duke team is we do not allow teams to shoot well from 3-point against us. Arizona only shoots 26% in this game. That was, and by the way, the difference in the game, if you look at all the stats, like, on 2-point field goals, all this, Duke and Arizona were very even, except in two places. One was the rebounding, which we already talked about, and the other was 3-point shooting, where we both took about the same number of 3-point shots. We were both like in the mid-20s in terms of how many threes we attempted, but Arizona only hits 26% of them. Duke hit 36% of them, and much of our lead comes from the fact that we hit 3 extra 3-pointers.
So I will talk about some of the nitpicky things on the defense later on, things that we can work on. But I will say this: I am so proud of our defense today because kind of interwoven in this, and you kind of mentioned it, was the fight. The fight was there the entire game. When things weren't going our way on offense, we were fighting on defense. We were even fighting on offense to make it through. And every single time there was something that went against us, the guys regrouped and they were able to make things happen on the other end, whether that was on offense or defense. But on defense,
Donald, it was an effort game. There's no question about it.
Well, you have to have that on the road. As we mentioned, effort is something you can put in a bag and store under your seat on your plane, right? So it can come on every single trip because you have to have it. Otherwise, you will get run out of any gym that you walk into, and that includes Cameron. And I think the idea here is that these guys understood that even at halftime, right? We had the 5-point lead, in John Shire in the interview right before they went to the half. They said, "Hey, what do you think about?" He's like, "Hey, we've been in this position before. We need to figure out how to respond in the second half." And to the credit, like, the offense wasn't there to start the second half, but the defense was the entire game. You mentioned the shooting, 39.6% from field goals for Arizona, 26% from three. They even shot 63% from the line, right? Like the free throw defense is going down for us. We don't have much to do with that, but that's fine, right? They only had 6 offensive rebounds. We talked about that. Arizona had 15 turnovers. So there was times where, like, we were taking the ball from them at the top of the key and it was uncontested the other way. We had a couple of great plays involving Tyrese Proctor. One was a dunk for him where he was all alone, and then one was a Cooper flag. They tried to inbound it over him, and he put his hand on the ball, was able to stop himself from going out of bounds, went the other way almost uncontested, but at the last second turned around, and right next to him was a trailing Tyrese Proctor, who he handed off to for the 3-pointer, and they called timeout after that. I think the one thing about our defense was that it fueled everything we did, and the one thing that it fueled more than anything was that fight that we needed on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, and if we're going to talk about a fight, I'm going to get to some individuals now because we talked about, general kind of stuff. Sion James and Malik Brown. It's real simple. Duke
Wait,
does
say
not
those
win.
Names again. We don't mention those two now. Say those two. Sion
Sion
James
and Malik. Yeah.
Sion James and Malik Brown.
It is real simple. Duke does not win this game without both of those guys playing big boy basketball. They are tough, physical, smart. They do all the little things. Donald, I often talk about the plus minus. In Sion's 20 minutes of play, again, he plays 20 minutes. Duke was plus 12. On the game, they were plus 14. So in the remaining 20 minutes, Duke was only plus 2. Can you see who maybe was responsible for Duke winning this game by 14 points? Maybe. And I just want to cite Malik Brown's arms. They seem to be everywhere. I know he's technically only has 2 arms. I believe he has 4 or 5 arms.
Have you seen his arms? His arms grow arms.
Yeah, exactly. Because his ability to get tips, deflections, to be disruptive. I mean, he's a menace. he is a menace on defense at all times. And by the way, Malik Brown's passing on offense quite useful. He is quite useful.
And I will say, guess who benefited from it?
I was
Twice.
just gonna say
Yeah.
he and Sion have some pretty good chemistry there. Like Malik gets the ball at the top of the key, and Sion goes, "Oh, this is a good time to go backdoor because Malik gonna find me."
Yes.
Those two guys, they work really well together. I was gonna kind of save this for the bad, but maybe I'll wait. There's something about Sion that I'm saving for the bad. It's
Sure.
not bad
Yeah,
about
we'll
Sion. It's
save the
bad
bad
about
stuff
someone
for the
else.
bad. We'll talk about the good
We'll
here.
save it. We'll save it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I will say this. When I talk about the fight in this, we'll talk about the two guys who led us in scoring, in Cooper Flagg and Konfident. But I want to talk about Tyrese Proctor for a minute because I thought he fought in several different ways. He finished with 8 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, and 1 steal. There was times where it felt like he was on fire, and you thought, "Oh man, he's gonna break open." And then there was times where like, "Man, Tyrese needs to come out of the game because he's just not effective right now."
Wait, in the second half, he was 0 of 5, including missing a layup. When he missed that backdoor layup, he got so mad at himself.
He missed the layup. He also missed the technical, the 2 free throws when Lewis had to stare down, right? So there was times where you're like, man, he is just not effective right now. But I will say this, Jason, what was one of the things I said was going to be the big matchup to watch? Tyrese Proctor versus Caleb Love. Advantage Proctor. I thought that his defense on Caleb Love, I mean, we got a lot of headlines that involved Love, right? And the fact that he, seems to do well only against Duke in whatever uniform he's wearing. And last night, he was largely ineffective on the game. He took a lot of bad shots. He had some turnovers. He made bad decisions with the basketball. And it felt like Caleb Love was shook when he looked in front of him and saw Tyrese Proctor there. And Caleb Love is not, Tyrese Proctor's not always won that battle, right? Like he's had a couple of losses against Caleb Love. But I will say last night, I thought when the chips were down, when he was ineffective in other areas of the game, when he couldn't find, felt like he couldn't hit water from a boat, he was able to lock in on that and say, hey, if I'm going to win anything today, this team is going to win because I am going to shut down my opponent. And that opponent was Caleb Love. And you could see how that affected the rest of Arizona's game. Caleb Love is their leading scorer, right? You could arguably say he's their best player, but right now he's their leading scorer in a team that scores a lot of points. And when you cut the head of the snake, the body will wither. Caleb Love was the head of that snake, and Tyrese Proctor said, "Yo, this head's coming home with me."
I like that. All right, as we're talking about individuals, we have waited far too long to discuss the game of one Cooper Flagg. I thought that early on, especially in the first half, he was rushing a little bit on the inside. He seemed like he was shooting before he really knew where he wanted to put the ball. But he fixed that in the second half. It seemed to me a little bit like he was a bit more on the perimeter in the second half versus being in the post a bit in the first half. But regardless of any of that, his stat line is absurd, as it quite often is. I mean, Cooper Flagg gets 24 points. He hit a couple three. He was hitting threes. He was hitting, stuff in the mid range, like in the lane. He was going to the bucket and finishing around the bucket. He was making outrageous dunks. He had 2 blocked shots. He had a steal. He had 6 rebounds. He had 3 assists. It was another one of these, everything runs through Cooper. I'm getting a little bit sick of hearing everyone talk about him being 17. Because frankly, Duke doesn't get any bonus points for the fact that Cooper Flagg is still 17. By the way, happy birthday.
Yeah, still worth 2 and 3 points when he makes it.
Yeah, happy birthday to Cooper in 1 month. I think it's almost exactly 1 month from today. But and maybe they'll stop talking about the fact that he's only 18 at that point, because then he'll be, technically the same age as all the other freshmen in the country. But yeah, there are no bonus points for having the second youngest player in all of college basketball on your team. But it is scary to think about what he will do as he matures over the next few years. I mean, supposedly there were like 50 NBA scouts and GMs in attendance at this game. I read that someplace. It was like close to 50
including
NBA
Mike
scouts
Dunleavy.
and GMs. Yeah, including Mike Dunleavy. Yeah, exactly. And I can't imagine a single one of them left this game thinking anything but, okay, I would trade pretty much anything, including my firstborn, to get this guy. I mean, when you think about what Cooper's going to be in a couple years, oh my God, he's absolutely going to be a dominant player because he can affect the game in so many different ways. And we saw that on display last night. Duke continues to run their offense through him. I've got no problem with it. I thought his decision making was significantly better in this game in big moments than it was in the big moments against Kentucky. Of course, Cooper learns from his mistakes. He was not spinning blindly. That was my big complaint, was that he was spinning blindly. He was trying to go between his legs too much, do too much with the basketball. He did a lot less of that in this game. He was like, no, I can use my length. I can use my quickness to get my shoulder around you, and then you're done. And Arizona did not have an answer for him for the most part in a game where both teams struggled so much on offense to get good possessions and to get points. Here's Cooper Flagg with 24 points in this game.
He started out 2 for 10 from the
Yeah.
floor in this game. He finished 8 for 12 from the floor. And so I think in the second half, again, like you said, young man is learning on the fly. And when he learns and applies it to the common calculus that is before him, that calculus maths. And I think the great thing about Cooper Flagg is that, again, when he wasn't scoring well, he was still getting rebounds. He was still getting assists. He was still getting blocks. He was still getting a steal. And again, he had the one steal I mentioned earlier, but he had maybe 2 or 3 more where they tried to inbound it. They couldn't find anyone underneath, so they would throw it long, and he would get his hands on it. There was one where he got his hands on it and just barely missed it before it went out of bounds.
Yeah.
There was one where he the guy got it, and it should have been a backdoor or a backcourt violation because the guy had to basically reach over and catch it and step foot into the backcourt, and they said it was deflection when it wasn't. But he affected that in so many ways. And then there was one, I think, where they tried to throw it over him, and Tyrese Proctor ended up with the ball. So he had a lot of plays where, despite the fact it didn't appear in the stat sheet for him, he was able to make a play and affect the play in some way. I will say he had 4 turnovers in this game, and what's frustrating is that 3 of them didn't feel like they were his. It felt like they were part of those loose balls where he would grab the ball and then someone would slap it out of his hand when he was on the ground.
Right.
It was like you said, he was way more in control. It just wasn't and the thing was, he was more in control and his shots still weren't falling, and he never got beyond level, right? He never got up or down about any of it. He just kind of said the next shot's going in, the next shot's going in. His teammates had confidence in him. And like you said, he was able to make plays that honestly didn't end up in the stat sheet, the pass before the pass, guarding somebody straight up and affecting a shot, tipping tipping the ball in the air so that someone else could get the rebound, that sort of thing. That fight is what he had. And honestly, in the second half, he said, I'm not losing this ball game again. That's the long and short of it. We've talked about that mentality all summer long. It finally showed up in Arizona where he said, I'm not losing this game, and I'm going to do what I need to do to win. And that's where I think he took over.
Right. What does it take to win? That's the question Cooper Flagg is asking every single time he steps on the floor. What is it going to take to win? And he wants to have, and he does have the answer to it virtually every time. All right, let's get to another individual, and that's Konfident. And I want to just go ahead and say it. Kon was in a deep funk in the first half. He seemed
deep funk.
Yeah, he seemed unable to get his shot off from the perimeter. He would then, his answer has when teams, shade him too much to the outside, he goes, no problem, I'll put the ball on the floor and go to the basket. He tried that, did not work. It did not work at all against Arizona's physical defensive guys. He was just 1 of 4 in the first half, and it wasn't for a lack of chances. He had the ball in his hand plenty to have only been 1 for 4. He couldn't get any clean looks. Nothing was happening on the inside. And then the second half, it was a different story. He hits 3 of 4 from 3. He got off 7 total shots, including a couple nice ones in the lane. He adjusted to the physicality, to Arizona's length. He did a nice job adjusting. And, we forget, because Kon has sort of a physical body, that he is also young and also a freshman. And he's someone who's having to figure it out against this caliber of competition for the first time. I just feel like, the trajectory, the path for these guys is going up, up, up constantly. And for Kon to have that kind of second half against a team that is as good and as physical as Arizona on the road, where you've just traveled 3 time zones. I mean, it was very, very impressive. And when we get to the play of the game, I will be talking about Konfident 3-pointers.
there's several to choose from there. So I'm looking forward to which one you pick. I will say this about Konfident, and this kind of goes for the rest of the team. Con learned a valuable lesson last night, and he learned it on the fly. And that lesson is this: if a team wants to pull you into the weeds, make sure you figure out a way to see over them, because that's what he did. Right as the game went on, he was being beat up. He was in the lane and not finding a spot. And here's the thing: he's going to learn that as we go forward in this season, that guys are going to understand that, hey, he wants to get to these spots, and I'm not going to let him do it. I'm going to be physical. I'm going to be in his face. I'm going to push him. I'm going to claw at him, whatever that is, but he's not going to get a good look from this spot that I know he wants to get to, or this 3-point area. And in the first half, that's what Arizona did, right? They were clawing at him. There was a couple of times he got fouled, I thought, on 3-pointers where like guys were slapping his arm, making him feel uncomfortable. But he figured out a way to see over the weeds in the second half. He got to his spots. He was able to make those threes. He got open, right? There was a couple of times where he was shooting contested shots, and he just said, well, if I take one more step to my right or one more step to my left, I'm open. Or if I run around the screen a little bit tighter, I'm open. And there was a couple of times where he was able to, you looked and you saw open Konfident, and I probably couldn't do this in my apartment because I'm in an apartment building, so I had to be muted at 12 in the morning. But there was times where he got the ball and he was wide open. I was like, okay, that's good. That's good. And he would just nail it with the confidence, right, that we saw in the headlines, right? So I really liked that he fought through that. He was able to see over the weeds, figure that out. And once he did, he was very effective for us down the stretch.
Yeah. All right. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, we're going to get to the bad. There's some things that Duke needs to work on. Some players need to get a little bit better in a couple different areas. We'll have that and our play of the game coming up in just a moment. Hey, Duke fans, spark something uncommon this holiday with just the right gift from Uncommon Goods.
The busy holiday season is here, and Uncommon Goods makes it less stressful with incredible, hand-picked gifts for everyone on your list, all in one spot. Gifts that spark joy, wonder, delight, that it's exactly what I wanted feeling. Somehow they've created a place where you can find the exact perfect gift for everyone.
Yo, Donald, speaking of perfect gifts, I got a root beer maker for my kitchen. It's something I never thought I needed. I am making handmade, homemade root beer now. I love root beer, and it's fresh whenever I want it. I think it's pretty cool, man.
Root beer floats are in Jason's future. I'm jealous. From holiday gifts to the coolest finds for kids to hits for everyone, from book lovers to diehard sports fans like all of us, Uncommon Goods has something for everyone. Not the same old selections you can find just anywhere. And with every purchase you make at Uncommon Goods, they give back $1 to a nonprofit partner of your choice. And to date, they have donated more than $3 million. I think that's outstanding.
Yo, Donald, that means that I'm sort of drinking root beer for charity, I guess. That's pretty nice of me. All right, folks. To get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/DukeBB. That's uncommongoods.com/DUKEBB, and you'll get 15% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods, we're all out of the ordinary.
For over 50 years, Burlington's legacy has been great deals on coats for all weather conditions. So before you're caught unprepared for the winter weather, head to Burlington for name brands, quality items, and surprising fits for every family member. Stock up on coats, sweaters, and accessories before the cold hits, so you can finally stop avoiding the elements and start living comfortably. Warm up at your nearest Burlington location less than 1 mile away. Burlington. Deals, brands, wow.
At the Home Depot, the holidays have arrived.
And so is all my family. So I'm working on keeping up with the laundry.
The Home Depot is here to help with Black Friday savings up to 40% off select appliances. Spend less time doing laundry with smart, efficient appliances from Samsung. Ranked #1 in customer satisfaction.
Perfect. Less laundry time means more family time.
Get Black Friday savings now with free delivery and financing on select appliances at the Home Depot. Visit jdpower.com/awards for more details. Offer valid November 6th through December 4th. U.S. only. See store or online for details.
The holiday season officially starts when you get that first card in the mail. Shutterfly makes it easy to add more meaning to the everyday with hundreds of holiday card designs that can be personalized in seconds with your favorite photos from this year. Select your greeting, customize the color, and even add little extras like personalized foil to make a holiday card that really shines. Enjoy 40% off with code SMILE40 at Shutterfly.com and send something meaningful this year. See site for more details.
All right, we're back from the break, and let's get to the bad from the win over Arizona. I'm going to start with this. Caleb Foster missed several wide open threes early on. He was better in the second half. He had 8 points in the second half, but it just feels like maybe Caleb's a little bit tentative. I don't know what's going on there, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I think it might be time for Sion James to be the starter. They're all, I guess. Maybe it really doesn't matter who starts. Frankly, those two guys are almost splitting the minutes, essentially at the point guard. Like last night, Caleb plays 26 and Sion plays 20, so I'm not sure it makes a huge difference. Although, I guess if I'm saying Sion should be the starter, I may be saying that I want to see Sion getting more than 20 minutes a game. I just think we've seen enough to know that Duke is a better team when Sion James is in the game. And if he's in the game, who comes out? I think it has to be Caleb Foster, at least at this point. I feel like in the preseason, if you'd said to me, "Oh, Caleb might lead this team in scoring," I think we all would have said, "Oh, that's possible." At this point, I think there's no way. I think at best he's like Duke's fourth best offensive player, and I was frustrated at Caleb's inability to do the things we're asking him to do on offense in that game last night. It was just frustrating.
I think a lot of the game was frustrating, right? And it wasn't just Caleb Foster, though. He's probably the prime example of that. I think the one thing that I will focus in on in addition to that is there were times on defense where, again, not just Caleb Foster, but other guys were leaving guys open. And there was a few defensive communication breakdowns. I will say this. I went back and counted, Jason. Arizona made 6 3-pointers in this basketball game. Only one of those makes were contested. Arizona was 5 of 7 when open. They were 1 of 16 when contested. What's the moral of the story there? Put a hand in their face, right? And there was times where, again, it was a defensive breakdown and very, very small ones, right? A guy doesn't shift over when he needs to. A guy goes under a screen instead of over top of it. Those are small things that leave open windows for guys to shoot. And I think that's just communication. Again, slight defensive breakdowns, going under screens. Don't give those guys open look because it's clear that the success is there when we put a hand in their face. I will say, going back to the offense, there were a lot of jump balls, a lot of offensive fouls. We had 14 turnovers in this game. And it felt like, again, the frustrating part of this team came from the offensive end of the court, despite the fact that we scored more points than the other team. And that is something that we will continue to have to build because as we will look ahead, there's no rest for the weary. They're staying on this West Coast road trip to play the best team in the country. They have to get better on the offensive end. Our defense is clearly there, but our offense needs to make better decisions with the basketball. They need to make sure that they're not pulling themselves into positions where they're not going to be successful. And they got to find open teammates and make sure our defense is rewarded with points on the other end. That's how it should always work. If you're going to have your defense beget your offense, then your offense needs to be giving out the Christmas presents every single time. And so far in a lot of stretches of the basketball game, our defense is doing the work only to not be rewarded on the offensive end. And that needs to continue to get better.
Yeah, so I'll push back a tiny bit on the turnovers because they were absolutely a concern. And Duke seemed to be really loose with the ball at times. It was stunning how many times Duke got an offensive rebound or a steal, and then immediately turned it over. Like in the transition to get into transition, Duke would turn the ball over, and I was just turned over. It
felt like it was in the trenches, right? Like I said, 4 turnovers from Cooper Flagg, and it felt like 3 of them were he got the ball, he's on the ground, he's kind of pinned, and then someone pokes the ball out of his hands, and Arizona picks it up in a scramble. So it wasn't. I'm not.
Right.
I'm right. I'm not concerned about the turnovers, but 14's a lot. We've always said the magic number is what, 12. Like
Right.
you want to
My
stay
magic
below that
number is 12.
number.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to stay under that, and we were just slightly over that. And I think a lot of them could have been prevented by again just hanging on to the basketball.
Yeah, no, I do not disagree at all. The one thing I'll note about the turnovers is that Arizona had 9 steals. Arizona's a good defensive team. They're long, they're physical, they're athletic. And that means that Duke only had 3 unforced turnovers, which is actually a pretty good number. In fact, on the season, I know we're in the bad, but this is sort of a good. On the season, Duke's non-steal turnover percentage, which is sort of like, offensive fouls, throwing the ball away out of bounds, walking, that kind of stuff. Duke's non-steal turnover percentage is the 6th best in all of college basketball. In fact, the single offensive thing that Duke does better than anything else on offense is our ability to not give up the ball where we make a mistake to give it up. And I think that's really, really notable, that Duke doesn't make unforced errors on offense. But again, the turnovers were a concern, and those steals, even though I guess that's Arizona getting a steal, a lot of the time it was Duke giving them a chance for a steal, so it wasn't that great. I also want to mention, in the bad, Mason Gillis, barely plays. Everyone's been wondering, how deep is John Shire's bench going to go? No Isaiah Evans, no Patrick Ngongba,
No Darren Harris.
Darren Harris, and Mason Gillis only gets about 6 minutes, 7 minutes. The vaunted deep Duke team turned into a 7-man team. And and by the way, it's worth noting, I don't know how Isaiah Evans, everyone's talking about Isaiah Evans. I don't know how he could have played in a game like this, where the game was all about effort, strength, D, and rebounding. And none of those are things that, Isaiah may get there someday. I'm not saying, but at this point in his career, at this point in his physical, maturity, saying, hey, Isaiah, get in there and battle the 240-pound Arizona big men for rebounds. That's just not that's not going to be something he's going to do. And frankly, Knipple did it a lot. So, but I was especially disappointed in Mason Gillis, who it just looked like this game wasn't something that he was able to impact in a positive way. There are a couple times I noticed he's battling on defense. There's no question about that.
Mm-hmm.
But it means something, I think, that John Shire only gave him 7 minutes in a very, very big road game.
I think when it comes to Mason Gillis, right, we may have a situation where, again, John Shire say, hey, I need this guy for 15, 20 minutes. And then there's other games where he's like, I only need him for 6. But again, like the other guys coming off the bench, we only had 8 bench points in this game. And I think all of them, or I'm sorry, 6 of them came from Sion. I think the idea here is when the bench comes off the bench, they need to be microwaves and getting to be effective on both offense and defense. And it felt like on offense, Mason Gillis was not there. On defense, it felt like he was barely there. And that's not a diss on him as a player. That's just for this particular game. I didn't think he had the outcome that he wanted. He didn't have the effectiveness that we are coming to expect from him in this lineup. And I think, again, if you're only going to have 8 guys, right? If you only have 3 guys come off the bench, they better be effective when they come in. And that's just the long and short of it. Otherwise, you have to look further down the bench. And I think that, again, is what the coaching staff probably has to deal about, especially when we're on the road. We're going to play Kansas and Vegas, and these guys are coming off of a big win on the road, but you got to make sure the other guys are ready too, because they may be necessary in that Kansas game. The last thing I had was our free throws. And yeah, we went 8 for 13. That's not terrible. It's not great, but we missed a couple of ones that we should have back. I know Tyrese Proctor is kicking himself that he missed those 2 technical free throws. Lewis got the stare down technical, and Proctor had a chance to, again, extend the lead, and he missed both free throws. Again, not singling him out, but we got to make free throws in that situation. We talked about in the Kentucky game, we had a couple of the front ends of 1-on-1s that were missed. Again, that's 2 points down the drain when you miss 1 free throw. So let's continue to, work on making our free throws, because those are going to be what is crucial, is making free throws at the end, not just in clutch time, but those free throws at the beginning, middle, and end. Those are going to be what adds up in those small wins and small losses.
Yeah, the last thing I had in the bad, very early in my notes about this game, as I watch the game, I try and take notes on my phone, Early in my notes, I said, hey, Tyrese Proctor's hit a couple early threes. We need to not forget about him. Because I feel like that's a pattern with Tyrese. And I'm not going to say that we forgot about him in the second half because, he did take 5 shots from the field in the second half, but he didn't score it all in the second half. And I just feel like, God, if we could ever get the full 40 from Tyrese Proctor, and I'm not blaming him completely because I think a lot of it this season, a lot of the inconsistency with his play this season has been his teammates being solely focused at times on Knipple and Cooper Flagg. And I think Tyrese is our third best offensive player behind those two guys. But boy, God, it would just be really nice if we could get a game where I go, oh, look, Tyrese had, 7 in the first half and 9 in the second, or something like that.
Yeah, we need a full 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think that extends to like all the guards, right? I think it extends to Caleb Foster and even the guys off the bench. Like you want them to have, I think our guard play is super important this year, especially as guys key in on Cooper and Khan. You need the guards to be there to be like, oh, let's make them pay. It's just like right? You want to have a dangerous hitter behind Aaron Judge. Because if Aaron Judge is intentionally walked, you want to make them pay. That's where the guards need to be a lot better.
Yeah, and the reason I cite Tyrese is that as I've said lately, I really feel like he is the most obvious third choice on offense behind Cooper and Khan. And so it was disappointing and a little frustrating that we couldn't get really much of anything from him in the second half, including a blown layup.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get to our play of the game. Donald, I'll do mine first because I kind of alluded to it earlier. You said, "Oh, I wonder which 3-pointer by K2 you will pick." I'm going to be a bad boy. I picked 2 of them.
That's cool.
There was about a minute long stretch at the 5-minute mark of the second half. 5 minutes left in the game. Arizona had cut the lead to 6, and K2 hits a 3 to put us up 9. And then just a couple moments later, it was like 2 possessions. Like we hit a free throw, they hit a free throw. It was, still a 9-point game, and he hit with about just under 4 minutes left. He hit another 3-pointer. It was the one where he sort of, I think his defender sort of thought, "Oh, I've got this guy," and Khan was like, "Oh, no, you don't, buddy.
You do not have me." Yeah,
you do not have me. He rose up and hit a second 3 with just under 4 minutes left to make the lead 12. I feel like that was the nail in the coffin. I feel like at that moment I was, you lead by 12, 4 minutes left. Not that the game was literally over, but you were like, Duke's got this. And a lot of the reason was because in a game where it was just super hard to get points, K2 in that 1 minute stretch scored 10% of our points.
Yeah. So I don't have 2, but I do have an honorable mention. I will start with the fact that Man hit his first 3-pointer of the season in the corner.
Nice.
And the reason why it was honorable mention and a candidate because when he hit it, it was contested, first of all. Second of all, it silenced the crowd to the point. You ever seen a crowd that just like they know they saw something spectacular and they just sit down, like very slowly sit down. You can hear the breath, like air kind of let out of a gym. That's what he did, and it immediately forced Arizona to call a timeout and think about it. That was my honorable mention.
We're dealing with that this game. Wait, before you give yours, I'll do my other. I had an honorable mention. Maybe I'm gonna, do yours. And then
let me do mine. Let me do mine.
I may take yours. Go ahead.
So, midway through the second half, Cooper Flagg gets the ball on the wing, calls for man on the ball screen, literally like waves him over, and he waves him over to the left side, and to his left side. So the defender thinks he's coming up on his right, but he comes up on the defender's left. He does a quick hezzy to make the defender think he's running into the pick, and then he's gone. He runs through the lane, yams it in traffic, and did one of those where he just kind of like said, I can do this. Sentinel's learning, runs back down the other floor, and again, I saw somebody behind the Duke bench that was an Arizona fan that just kind of just sat down like, well, Cooper Flagg's doing that. I guess we should probably come up with another plan here. That was my play of the game. I even texted my best friend at that point, play of the game candidate. There was no other candidates after that.
Yeah. I will tell you that that was my one where I was like, oh, that's my honorable mention. It looked like he stretched his arms extra long, and it also looked like this was kind of crazy about it. I watched it twice. I think there was an invisible step in the air because he went up and then he went up more. And I was like, wait, how did he do that? I'm
He
not
went
sure
up with
that's
two.
possible.
He went up with two hands, and then like you said, kind of like halfway through the jump, he was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna make it with two, but I will definitely make it with one." And he just
Yeah.
like extends his arm, kind of like Michael Jordan in Space Jam. So like he did. It was one of those
I
like
love it.
two. No, one's enough, and yeah, he brought the house down with that one.
Yeah, we also should mention he had a block shot with about 14 minutes left in the game that I was just like, how if you're Arizona, you watch that and just go, oh man,
Yeah.
what are we dealing with here? What is this? What is this flag animal? Because I've never seen anything like this before. Yeah, he's just fun to watch. All right, with that, we'll get to our player of the week, and should not come as a big surprise after hearing what I just said. My player of the week is Cooper Flagg. 24 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 blocks, a steal. I mean, come on. He's everywhere. Duke asks him to do everything. And yeah, I just don't Ken Pomeroy says he was the MVP of the game. I'm not going to fight that. Cooper Flagg's my player of the week.
I'm also not going to fight it, but he is not my player of the week. You actually talked a lot about my player of the week in the first half of this podcast. His name is Sion James.
I love that you do this. Yes.
Off the
Yes.
bench, coming off the bench, he did a tremendous job on defense, rebounding, getting open on the backdoor cuts for those two yams. Again, two that did make the cut for play of the game, but plays that were outstanding nonetheless. And like you said, we don't win this game if it's not for Sion James. So I'm going to go with that.
I am so on board with it. I thought about it. I'm glad you did it.
Yeah.
I was like,
Well, I'm
it's
glad you
gotta be
picked Cooper because I think Cooper, like when you look at the stats, yeah, Cooper was the player of the game. But player of the week, like again, we needed, especially coming back from the injury from Kentucky, right? Like we realized how much we needed Sion James in that game, and we didn't have him. How great was it to have him for the entire game this time?
Yeah, I think Duke absolutely hangs on and wins that game against Kentucky if Sion James is healthy, if he's able to play in that second half. We saw in that game the difference of what happens when Duke has Sion and when they don't. And yeah, I'm not going to fight with you at all about picking Sion as player of the week.
Jason, before we get out of here, I did want to make a quick announcement for our listenership. As everyone knows, we are playing Kansas. We will talk about that game. We're actually going to record that tomorrow, and we'll probably have it in your feed sometime on Monday morning or Monday at lunchtime. But, of course, that game is in Las Vegas. I will be at the game. And as I mentioned, it is hard to meet up with people at the game. There's just too much going on. We are all there for one singular purpose, and it is not for meeting up on a concourse somewhere. It is about watching the game. So we will have a meetup before the game, and that way people can come, and if they want to have a pregame drink or what have you, some food, we can do that. Tom's Watch Bar. It's a national chain. I don't like doing the national chains, but this is an easy one to find. Tom's Watch Bar. It is in the New York casino. We will meet there at 3 p.m. The game starts at 6, so it'll be a little early. We'll meet there from 3 to 4:30. The reason why I'm picking that, keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that there is an F1, a Formula One race going on tonight in Vegas.
Traffic is crazy. Let me tell you, my friend. I was there last week. Traffic is crazy.
Traffic is crazy because 2/3 of the strip is being used for the actual track. So if you are north of New York Casino, you will be waiting in traffic quite a bit. So keep that in mind. New York Casino is right in front of T-Mobile Arena. So go into Tom's Watch Bar. We meet up there. You will have plenty of time. I don't think the doors open until an hour before tip-off. So you'll have plenty of time to walk around the building to T-Mobile Arena from Tom. So meet there, 3 p.m. Happy to meet every single one of you that's out there for the game. It'll be a great time. We'll vibe over the podcast. You can ask me questions about Jason, and I will happily answer them honestly and truthfully. No, Jason, we will miss you in Vegas, but I'm really looking forward to being out in Vegas. I'm leaving on Monday to head out there. But yes, Tom's Watch Bar, 3 p.m. on Tuesday, just a couple hours before the game at the New York Casino. We'll see you there.
Have you figured out what you're wearing? How are people going to know who you are?
I kind of know what I'm going to be wearing. I think I'm going to be wearing like a quarter zip, a blue Duke quarter zip. But don't worry, I'll post that. Duke Roundup online. I'm sorry, on Twitter. I will post where I will be once I get in there. It's not a huge restaurant, and I'll be in a spot where you'll clearly know it's me. But I will post on Monday where to find me once I get to Tom's, and we'll go from there.
So here's what you need to do. You need to post a selfie of yourself in your outfit on our at Duke Roundup.
I'll do it sitting at Tom's with a drink in my hand. So
there you go. I like that. All right. That's going to wrap it up here on the latest edition of the DBR podcast. Like Donald said, we'll be back in your feed in just, a day or two to talk about that Kansas game. We'll also be talking about Duke's football game coming up against Virginia Tech tonight. Until then, he is Donald. I am Jason. DBRpodcast@gmail.com is the email address. And this is the Duke Band playing us out and taking us to Vegas, baby.
Viva Las Vegas. Gotta be with
When's your flight?
My flight's on Monday morning. So
Gotcha.
I'll have a chance to sleep and all that. So, but there's NFL football. I'm very good at sleeping on planes, which is if you travel like me, it's a high quality to have. If you can't sleep well on planes, I wouldn't travel as much.
My wife hates the fact that I'm so good at sleeping on planes. She's always like, I hate traveling with you. I want to go to sleep. I look at you. You're sleeping. I can't sleep. She's like, I hate it.
Jason, you're a movie critic. My favorite movie, Back of My Eyelids. Great movie. Seen it a billion times.